Hello everyone and welcome to this new video of the series. Actually, in the first episode I've asked you what the lore background of our character was. Uh, I was open to suggestions, but guess what? Nobody came forward. Actually, I was joking. Two people, actually two of my admins from the Vaznar Discord server came forward indeed and shared with me um, two different lores, and I'm actually going to read both of them, and I will be using, let's say, both, but kind of a mix, and also I've made some personal editing, so I'm gonna try to fit both in and to be as lore accurate as possible, with the mod and the Vaznar universe. So the first lore, which is pretty short, it was written by Northwind. Thank you, my friend. Here it goes. As far as Vaznar is concerned, vampires are its greatest plague. If you ask of the humans, Volkwarts was no exception. From the very beginning, he was a very, very strong individual. He needed not much training and bested foes far more trained than him. He was born into the most prestigious house, Drakenheir, most respected, most powerful, and most flexible of all vampire lineages, but he was driven out, and the Overlord and his rivals were displeased that he had been dealing with Strumife, and that was his crime. But his rivals in court also concocted false rumors of killing his wife and stories of pro-human sympathies. The Overlord did not have time or will to check these claims, but he had some rumored unfinished grievances with Volkswarts beforehand, a fate he could not avoid. He still had his noble sword, reminder of his once past glory. His air and impeccable manners marked him as a member of Drakenheir, even if cast to exile. He is not known for his mercy or tolerance. In fact, he is more of a Vodrak vampire than a Drakenheir when it comes to his bloodthirsty ways and cruelty, especially when dealing with war prisoners. Despite the claims, he held much disdain in his mind for humans, seeing them as a weaker species, naturally to be only used for breeding, feeding, and of course as manual labor. He reserves a special hatred in his heart for Nelians, for there are two things he hates beyond words: cowardly merchants and honorless mercenaries. Nelians are well versed in both, and as such his dealings with them are often bloody. So I decided to change the lore a bit. Most of all, the house I was from, and you're gonna notice it in the other lore sent by Sir Daniel that I'm going to read very soon. And secondly, I'm gonna change the motives, of my banishment from the vampire house, and you're gonna like it, I think. So yeah, for the rest, I'm gonna be a bloodthirsty vampire still, very violent, and I'm also gonna despise the aliens. In the first episode, I had a quest with them, and I will probably have more, and that's why my hate will grow, because I have had some teamwork with them, and I've seen how they uh, handle things, and I didn't like it a single bit. So that would make some sense. Let's start reading Sir Daniel lore. Nights are cold and cruel, and even colder and crueler when Falkwert blood is running through your veins. It's hard to accept that you're here now, right before distant and unwelcoming Strumife Keep, having nothing of past glory and truth eyes, but a lackluster sword, coat, and a letter in your hand. How did you end up in this mess when it was all going so good? Strumive Seer was going through your memories already in exchange of a hefty sum. The new methodic of a memory regained from mysterious coastal vampires should prove useful to you. Entering trance, the seer started to talk all kind of things, which in the end you added together as pieces of a puzzle. Being a human servant to a vampire lord usually means that your duty will be keeping the manor tidy at best, but that's not the case for Volkwarts vampires. Their servants always chosen from the hardest and harshest of humankind, the ones who will be able to keep up with their constant feuds as bloody as hell and feasts as tiresome as if they're a challenge on their own. And who could do better than you, a former Stygian reaver whose name poor commoners speak between themselves as silently as if you already were a bloody vampire even before turning to one. Those were truly good times, before and after. It is quite common for a poor Stygian not to receive any formal education, but your case was slightly different, as the only main education you needed since teenage years was a mastery over excess. Its gruesome, long-after tool of chopping and hacking and scaring peasants to hand over their supplies. This was good indeed. Everyone surviving in Stygia land, but you at least had more supplies than farmers, and hunters that were sharing precious food bits with yourself. Mountain village of Sletsk wasn't really the most prosperous, but you found it and ruled over it solely, as the local baron never really bothered to check his fief. Well, on that fateful day, he decided to pay a visit. At the same time your gang was coming to receive the toll, Leslie at the same time, a band of angry Volkwarts vampires was coming to have some fun too. It turned out to be a bloody mess that day. While you were pressing the village elder, the baron came, bringing around 50 tricons with him. They immediately charged, and while you had only 30 men between thugs and enforcers, you alone counted as 10 tricons minimum, so it was a balanced fray. Only later you did acknowledge that during the fray in Sletsk, the vampire gang came and just started to chop chaotically both your thugs and the baron's men. But during the battle you couldn't notice all this, being too involved in the ongoing bloodbath you actually craved for. Soldiers were falling like freshly cut trees under your gruesome long axe that you were swinging from horseback, while wildly riding back and forth through the village plains that became the field of battle. All your men were dead, but you didn't notice. All the Baron's soldiers were dead as well, but that didn't stop you, riding and chopping wildly at whatever was on the battlefield, them being vampires, while blood-sucking minions too were in the process of being slain. Some vampire lady in grim dark plate armor stood at some distance, staring at the massacre and admiring your feats, seemingly without being bothered at all of her kin being slaughtered. You only stopped riding your steed and swinging your arm when nobody was coming at you anymore, remaining the sole survivor and champion of that carnage. Then the vampire lady with her retinue rode towards you. She presented herself as a Countess Mareike Volkwart. It's uncommon for vampires to have such peaceful conversations with humans, especially with Volkwarts, but you didn't press them that day, so much so that the Countess herself offered you to become a servant under her banner. You can't quite remember what you were thinking that moment, just casually living the life of a human for good in order to serve the vampires. But you remember very well the smell of dead foes and their blood, taking a liking for all that gruesome scenery, just as much as you liked your new friend's company, so you ended up taking the offer without too much thought. You quickly learned how to refer to your liege, the Battle Lady, as the Countess was commonly called for being the female head of Volkwart House. You instead were nicknamed Lumberjack for your exceptional synergy with an axe in hand. Luckily for you, Volkwarts had all kinds of grim battle axes in stock, all made from burnished steel and eager to drink blood as if they had vampire minds inside them too. At first your valiant exploits weren't recognized by the vampire kin, but soon enough you proved to be a fierce foe, fighting masterfully like true vampires, a menace to anyone whom you deemed an adversary. In the meantime, the Battle Lady organized a duel with one of her bodyguards, the infamous Dreadlord, which is a common practice for a human servant of Volkwarts house to be accepted and respected. Even though the Dreadlord was in full plate armor during the battle and you were wearing your mundane clothes, you ended up victorious, by first crippling the Dreadlord through chopping off his right arm and then mercilessly hacking away the soul from his body as well. Nobody mourned the slain warrior, as for Volkwarts, the life on its own means nothing. Only the success and worth are recognized, and you did make a great show of your skills. Your glory was rewarded by turning you into a vampire, and from that moment on, you stood even higher in the Volkwarts house hierarchy. The vampires of the houses all agreed you'd have a great future ahead, becoming the count or even outperforming the Battle Lady herself and becoming the new head of the house. But you didn't consider that intrigues could foil all your ambitious plans. Intrigues, or rather a love triangle. It's uncommon for a Volkwart to love something else than the thrill of battle and some good human hunting, but something unexpected happened involving both you and the Countess Mareike, the Battle Lady herself. She started to have bits of sympathy and later heartfelt attraction towards you, starting the very first meeting at Slesk. You instead started to grow affectionate towards her gentle sister, Lady Quizia. It's only natural that you didn't ever see your liege in a romantic light, instead ogling her beautiful sister who didn't have any battle scars on her face, nor wide manly shoulders from a constant swing of sword and axe. But this affection hit the Battle Lady as brutally as a Fiend Slayer Paladin stake does to a vampire heart. It wasn't only for your coldness towards her, but especially the fact that your lover was her own, the same one she was always secretly jealous of, her own sister. Mareike lost her temper and vowed for payback. Your downfall from this point on was clear as day. At first, the Battle Lady wasn't giving you your share of spoils of war. Then she demoted you from the Dreadlord's elite rank. Lastly, she went as far as to banish you from the house completely. Volkwart nobles, not knowing about all the secret love affairs, surely thought that the Countess Mareike banished you out of fear that a prodigy like yourself will replace her as the house leader eventually. They started to see the Battle Lady as an easy prey, bringing House Volkwart to an even more war-torn state than it is usually in. Even your restored memories are hazy from now on, almost totally erased, so it's a mystery how you ended up so far from Volkwart Fifths. But you do remember joining a caravan directed to the Strumaev Enclave lands. You expected that the Seer services would also have predicted the future, but apparently your existence had already ended. What happened to Quizia? The last thing you did was asking for a new name and identity. The Seer said that it would be Volkwarts. It sounds shady, as if she just made it up, but what choice do you have, really? Riding away from the Strumaev enclaves, you stop in the wilderness, finally decided to open up a letter you found in your bag. You have no clue on how you obtained it, but it reads,
My dear, I have urgent news. My sister has completely lost her reason. She is furious and I fear for my own safety. She blames me for your disappearance. She couldn't find a worthy replacement and not even her bodyguards are loyal to her anymore. She locked me in my room and warned me that if I try to escape, I'll be branded as a traitor. I'll be outcasted and a bounty will be put on my head. The situation has become unbearable, and I'm conflicted on what to do. I pray that you come in my aid, but perhaps this is just a hopeless fantasy. In the worst scenario, I'll fight against my sister and may the better one triumph. Our time together was short but intense. I treasure the memories of all we endured. I hope to see you again one day. Signed, Lady Quizia.
Nobody could predict if destiny would have made our paths cross each other again, but Volkwarts made a solemn vow to return to Quizia one day, freeing her from her diabolical sister claws.